am filming from a bit of a different location. We are currently in Mexico, and I really wanted to film this video before we left, and that is the books that I've been reading whilst we are over here. Some of them I'm actually going to leave out here. They have sort of like a little section at the concierge desk where you can swap books, so I'm going to leave a couple here, but I thought I'd review them for you before I got rid of them, so I've got them physically to show you. So in total I've read 9 books, and the 9th one I am still sort of towards the end of, but I'll talk about that when I get to it. But I will go in order of how I read them and what I rated them and that sort of thing. So as you can see, I have a big pile here, and a lot of these were the ones that I mentioned in my book haul, so they won't be sort of much of a surprise. So the first one is Copycat by Alex Lake. This one is probably actually one of my favourite that I've read over the past 2 weeks, and this is about a girl called Sarah who's one day an old friend gets in touch with her on Facebook, and she basically says to her, "Is this your right profile?" And Sarah's like, "Yeah, of course, this is the only profile I've got." And then her friend actually sends her this profile link, and basically someone has set up a Facebook page in her name, been posting as her, got all the same photos, and it's all photos that are like in her house or with her kids, like really personal things that only she would necessarily know, or her husband, or maybe one of her friends, like her best friends, but she doesn't suspect any of them, and we don't suspect any of them. So really gripping. I did give this 5 stars. I just thought it took a really sort of dark turn towards the end, and I quite like that. It was definitely a surprise. I didn't really see the outcome or the twist, and yeah, I really quite enjoyed this. So the ending, if you've read it, you'll know it did sort of leave me slightly unsettled. It's not like the perfect ending, everything's tied up, justice has been served, all that sort of thing. It's very, without sort of giving it away, you feel very sort of unsettled and very sort of, not angry, but you just feel a bit disheartened at the end. I don't even think disheartened is the right word, but yeah, unsettled is sort of the best way that I can describe it. And also one other thing, her husband, Ben, I felt like he should apologise a lot more than what he did. I don't even know if he did apologise, from what I can remember, but from all that he was sort of accusing his wife of, and then when they obviously found out the truth, I felt like he really should have apologised. But I don't want to say any more because I don't particularly want to spoil it, but really good book. The next, I read this one, and this is An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth by Chris Hadfield. Surprisingly, I didn't enjoy this as much as the other sort of astronaut books that I've read. If you've been on my channel, you know that I reviewed Twin Peaks and Mike Massimino's, and those two I rate really highly. This one, it just lacked something for me. I felt like the timeline itself was a little all over the place. I couldn't sort of warm to it or his character. I felt it was very, not so much scientific, but like getting to the facts, that sort of thing. And even though there was bits and pieces of like his personal life, I just found it to be not as sort of warming and personal as I found the other two. So I am going to leave this book here. Bless you, Darren. Darren's in the bathroom because I've kicked him out. So I am going to leave this one here for someone else to hopefully enjoy. And that one I only gave 2 stars. So the next book is I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh, and this is another sort of thriller, suspense. You can see a theme going on here. This book surrounds a lady called Jenna who one day is involved in a car accident in which a little boy is killed, and this sort of turns her world completely upside down, and she ends up moving to a really remote village in Wales to try and sort of get away from everything. This one just had my mind completely like confused halfway through because of the twist, and like I'm still slightly confused on it. It wasn't as clear as I would have liked, unless I didn't read part as well as I should have. Like, it's easy around the pool to get distracted, but I just felt like because of the twist it was a bit confusing, but I did think that towards the end of it, and when you actually find out who sort of the killer is and why, and that aspect of it, I found that really good part of the book. I gave 4 stars. I thought it was pretty good. I'm not quite sure if I'll take this home with me or not. I don't know if I'll read it again. It's one of those that I could probably forget quite easily and then pick it up in a year or so and then be surprised at the twist again, so we'll see on that one. Next, I read The Book of Tomorrow by Sophie Helyn. I don't know if I mentioned I was bringing this because I got it in a swap. So this book was completely different from what I expected from Sophie Helyn. Obviously she wrote P.S. I Love You, and I've read that one. I'm not sure if I've read another one of her books as well, but I was sort of imagining that sort of very whimsical, light-hearted sort of book with a bit of romance thrown in, and this had that little bit of mystery, a little bit of magic in it, and yeah, I'll read you the back of this because it's sort of hard to explain. This is a story about how the future can change the present. Tamara Goodwin has everything given to her. She has never wasted a thought on tomorrow, but when tragedy turns her world upside down, she has to leave her comfortable life behind, abandoning an affluent existence for the charity of relatives deep in the countryside. When a travelling library arrives in the village, it offers an escape into the pages of the books on its shelves. One of them, a heavy leather-bound volume locked with a padlock, draws Tamara to it, and what she discovers within its pages start to change her life in the most unexpected of ways. So you basically have this really rich girl whose life is turned upside down. Her dad commits suicide, and they basically go and live with their relatives who live in the Irish countryside, and it sort of goes on from there. There's this travelling library that comes around. She's sort of stuck in the middle of nowhere and there's not a lot to do, so she takes an interest in this and the guy that's running it. And this one book stands out to her, and when she ends up opening it, it is basically written by her but about the next day. So it's not technically written by her, she didn't write it, but it's written as if she had wrote it in her handwriting, predicting the future. And that's completely not what I expected from this book, but I did end up really enjoying it. And again, the twists at the end, it sort of kept you hanging on and turning the page. This one I did give 4 out of 5 stars. With most of these books I finished them in like a day or two because obviously I've got a lot of time to read while we're here, but I did really enjoy this one. The next one is another sort of mystery murder type one, like a thriller, and this is Girl Zero by A.H. Dehan. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that, but this is part of his, it's not so much a series, it's just like got the same main character in it called Harry Birdie, who is a detective, and this is about one day he finds his niece dead, and when he goes to the scene he obviously recognises that it's his niece, and it follows all about him trying to sort of get justice for his niece, but also his brother, who's the girl's father, also wants justice in a very different way. He obviously wants to go and find him and kill the guy, and obviously his detective brother wants to do it the right way and go through the justice system. I didn't really enjoy this as much as I thought. It was very, it was quite dark really. It touched on sort of women's slavery and women sort of like the buying and trading of them, which is obviously it still does go on, and yeah, so it is quite a real harrowing book. I only gave this one 3 stars. It's good, but I think it's just a bit too dark and a bit too sort of thriller and crime for my liking, so that's why I only gave it 3. Next book is called Lies by T.M. Logan, and again it's another sort of thriller suspense, and this is about a guy who one day he sees his wife in a hotel with one of their best friends, and they seem to be having a bit of an argument. When she comes out, she completely ignores him and doesn't notice him, so he goes and confronts this guy, that one of their good friends, and sort of tries to find out about it, and it ends up in a bit of a tussle. And I mean, this is all in like the first chapter or so. Basically the main guy, Joe, who we follow, he hits the guy and he's knocked out unconscious on the floor. At the same time, his son, who's there with him, watches this and ends up having an asthma attack. He has to take him home straight away to get his inhaler. When he comes back to the hotel, the guy and his car is gone. So it sort of reveals from that, and it's about basically this guy Joe is convinced that this guy's still alive. He is getting these messages and stuff from him, but obviously the police think that it's been set up and that it's a murder, and even though they can't find the body, they're accusing Joe, and it just spirals out of control from there. And he's doing everything he can to sort of fight his corner and prove that he's innocent, and everything just falls against him. So I really like this, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next one is All Are Wrong Todays by Ilan Mastai, and this was probably my least favourite that I read. I only gave it 2 stars. This is slightly time travel-y, but I didn't really enjoy it that much, and I did pretty much skim read this. So this is about a world where everything that was thought of about the future in the 50s has come true, so flying cars and not having to worry about outfits because they're all done for you, and something that goes over your head to do your hair in the morning and cut it for you, like completely futuristic thinking from back in the day. And the main boy in this, Tom, his dad has actually invented time travel, and he wants to go back and basically give himself a second chance, and ends up changing a load of things and basically making a mess out of it. And I couldn't warm to this. I know I've seen someone else around the pool actually pick this up, so I'm not saying don't get it, definitely give it a go, but for me I just didn't like this, especially considering the book I'm reading now, which has sort of got some of the same themes. I definitely prefer that more compared to this one. So that, aside from the one I'm reading right now, was all the books that I brought with me. I did pick up this one from the concierge desk, and this is The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. Obviously a big film, and I've never watched it or read the book, but I know it's highly coveted. And yeah, so this is basically, if you don't know, it's about a girl that dies, and it's still narrated by her up in heaven, and it follows her family sort of dealing with their grief of her, and about her killer, and trying to find justice for her in that aspect. I really did quite like this. I gave it 3 stars. I think it is probably was more overhyped than I thought, and the ending sort of, I felt it didn't so much let it down, but it wasn't the best ending. It was an okay book for me. It was a really quick, easy read, so I liked the way it was narrated by her, even though she was dead, and it is slightly more gruesome than I thought as well at the start. So that was that book. So the last book, which is what I'm currently reading, is this giant one, which is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This is the first Stephen King book I read, so it was a pretty big, bold decision to bring this along with me in case I didn't like it. I have about 100 pages left of this, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It is sort of, again, that time travel aspect, but I prefer this and the way it's written a lot more. So this is basically about a guy called Jake Epping, who's an English teacher, very like standard living, and he meets the local guy at the diner, and he's actually dying of cancer and wants to show him the secret, which is that in the back of his diner he basically has a portal that travels back to the 60s, or like the late 50s, early 60s, and basically their mission that he has set Jake is to go back in time and stop the assassination of President Kennedy. And I can't speak for the end, but so far it's really good. There's like a bit of romance in it, but not too much. There is a little bit of like an abusive relationship, and just the way that it talks about the 50s and 60s is really good. It shows obviously a lot of the topics that were around at that time, with like segregation and just how our views have changed since then. And it's time travel, but sort of like in the past, and like we're in the future, if that makes sense. So yeah, I predict this will be a 4 or a 5-star rating, but I thought I'd just include it, and if I have any further notes I'll put them on an end slide when I'm in editing. Surprise! It's past or future me however you want to look at it. I thought I'd just record this little bit before I uploaded this video of the 2 books that I finished sort of after recording the first part. So obviously I said I was reading the Stephen King book, and then I also, over the course of the last couple of days and on the plane, read Thrive by Arianna Huffington, so I thought I'd just give my few cents on these. So I'll start with the Stephen King book. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars in the end. I felt like the ending somewhat let it down a little bit, and I saw on Goodreads a couple other people were saying this. You do feel like everything you've read up to that point was completely worthless, completely useless, didn't need to happen. I won't spoil it, but it did feel that way a little bit. But I still enjoyed the book. I really was engrossed in the book throughout. I was very interested in the characters and the different aspects of the plot lines. And I liked the way and how it described sort of in the past. It felt very realistic. And yeah, it was just interesting to think of that what if, of what if Kennedy wasn't assassinated, what if we could time travel. And even though it does sound a bit impossible, and quite impossible really, the whole time travel idea and the fact he was just able to sort of step in through the ground literally and go back 60 years, as much as that is, well, yeah, impossible, the way he writes it makes you feel like it could happen, and that's sort of what I liked about this book. I definitely will probably pick up another Stephen King book if I find another sort of topic that I like, or another sort of blurb that I like. But yeah, I did feel like the ending sort of let it down slightly. And then I read Thrive by Arianna Huffington, and I also gave this 4 out of 5 stars. She is the CEO and founder of the Huffington Post, and this is sort of all about her journey with her career, being a very independent woman, and how work and sort of the stress that has taken a toll on her life. It goes into talking about how you can sort of de-stress and just get away from everything, and especially obviously we're so in with our technology and social media, how that has an effect and how you can be more mindful about your life. And it sort of just goes throughout. There's different quotes, there's different sections. She sort of has the 3 W's, which she sort of section it out into, so well-being, wisdom and wonder. And yeah, I quite enjoyed this book. It did have that little bit of fact overload at some times, but nonetheless I could sort of relate to bits of it, and it's probably a book that I will keep. I did end up buying the Thrive journal from Kiki K, which is sort of the companionship. This is a Kiki K exclusive cover. I got it at the airport at Gatwick, and so I definitely want to work through this because they sort of go hand in hand, and what she's sort of talked about and how you can put that things in place. This book sort of is supposed to be helpful in implementing that. So that is the other 2 books that I read. I just wanted to add this little extra as my concluding thoughts, and let's jump back to the rest of the video. So those are the 9 books that I read. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully this all turned out alright, because I know the lighting's a bit odd and the air conditioning's on and that sort of thing, but I just wanted to get this uploaded before we left our hotel. So yeah, stay tuned for Mexico vlogs. They'll be coming up in due course. Obviously I need to get through and edit all that, and there's quite a few other sort of non-travel related vlogs that I want to record. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys. Bye guys! How did you? I know you do that, it's so predictable.